Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a woodworking project out here in the old shop, and one of many, I hope, woodworking projects. We are doing, believe it or not, a tortoise table. It's like an aquarium table, and we're doing this for a lady. She called me. Initially, I advertised a coffee table, but I had sold the coffee table, and consequently she said, well, I want a table for my tortoise, my aquarium, actually. And I said, well, maybe we can make a deal. And we wiggled and waggled and talked quite a bit. And she told me what she wanted and sent me some pics, and I sent her some specs and some pricing, etc. Eventually, we came up with a deal, so we decided to do this tortoise tabletop. And I think you're going to enjoy the video on how to do it and how we actually work through it. So anyway, let's get started here and enjoy. One thing, an afterthought that I should mention, is that part of this video after this segment, there's a lot of noise in the background because I stupidly left the propane heater on, so you'll have to excuse that. That's only for a few segments of the video, and then the audio gets better after that. So be patient and stay with us. So I went ahead here and grabbed me up some 1x6 spruce, and which is actually 5.5, and then I milled this down on the table saw. It took about 1/4 of an inch off each side, and so it became exactly 5 inches. And on the back, I'll just flip this around here, you can see that I used pocket holes to put these guys together. So I went ahead and put about 4 pocket holes in the back, and this being an even 5 inches, I went ahead and put 1, 2, 3, 4 of them together, which made them 20. So she wanted a little over 19, which made it 20, which is actually perfect. So again, we have 4 pieces of 1x6 spruce milled down to 5 inches each. 4 of them together makes 20. And went ahead and put the good side on, then put the end pieces on. So it turned out to be not too bad of a top. I still have some sanding and stuff to do next. And I think what I'm going to do with the legs is I'm going to take some 2x4s, and I'm going to cut the 2x4s down to 29.25 inches, glue them together, and then I'm going to cut 1/4 of an inch off each 2x4, which is going to make them a nice even 3x3. And that should make kind of a nice leg. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut these down and glue them together, and then I'll just kind of show you what they're like. I've gone ahead and marked these legs down to 31 inches, and then if I glue them together 31 inches, that's also going to give me a bit of extra to trim off each end to get them, to get them nice and square, get those factory ends off, and get them a perfect 29 and 29.25, because the width of the actual tabletop is 3/4. So if I take the 29.25, add 3/4 to it, of course I get an exact 30 inches for my legs. So when these legs are put together, here's kind of what they look like. I mean, they're in the rough right now, but you take and you trim 1/4 of an inch off each side, and trim them down, cut them down to length. I think they're going to be okay. Glue them together an exact 29.25. I think they're going to be a not too bad looking leg. So I'm going to go ahead, cut the rest of these, and then we'll glue them all together. All right, guys, I've got everything all sewing up here, and so I've got 4 decent looking legs, or potentially decent looking legs, at 31 inches here. And so I'm just going to go ahead and glue these up. All right, guys, I know what some of you are saying. There is no way in the Great Northern Tundra you're going to get 2 2x4s, stick them together, and get a decent looking leg out of it. That's impossible. Well, no, it isn't. I've done it on a dining table, and actually it comes out quite nice. Just be patient and wait till you see the final product, because it does actually work quite well. And you might also be saying, what is that rip-roaring noise in the background in your shop there? Well, it's about -4 here in Canada, or -5, and it is darn cold in this shop. So I got my old propane heater going here, blasting out the heat. So that's kind of that wonderful background noise you hear. So I don't know, I wish I could get something a little nicer, but it does work. So if you guys can tell me something a little cheaper and this thing is hard on propane too, that isn't quite as noisy, that blasts out a good amount of heat to heat up this shop, go ahead and let me know. I'd love to hear your comments on that one. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, guys, is I'm going to find the best edge on this, because these edges are going to face outside, and put them together. Then I'm going to put a good bead of glue, running down here, and then I'm going to put them all together. I'm going to get some pipe clamps on here, clamp them really well, and take them inside because it's really cold out here, and probably leave them for the night. So I'll just give you a good shot here when I get these all glued and clamped up. And I got to thinking, just before I show you the shot of them all glued up, I got a pretty good spread of Gorilla Glue on here. So I'm just going to go ahead and I guess take the best edge and lay one over the other. Just something like this. Even them out. And put the rest of them together and clamp them. Okay guys, I've gone ahead and clamped these up, and I'm going to throw a few more clamps on here. But I think this is going to look, this is going to be pretty good. It's going to be cold out here tonight. I got the heater roaring away here, but I might take them inside, lay them down in the basement, and just let them dry overnight. But they're about as flush as they're going to be for some 2x4s, glued and clamped together. But I think come morning, like I said, we're going to cut the ends off, about 1/4 inch off each side, then cross cut them up to our 29 1/4, and then I'll go ahead and we'll do some routing on here and make a nice leg out of them. And I think that should be just dandy peachy fine. And of course you guys might be saying, well Dave, why don't you just go out and buy some 4x4s? Well, number one, I have trouble finding 4x4s in any kind of, I can't even find them in spruce. The only thing I can get is some cedar, pressure treated, and I don't want those because I want to stain them up and I want to lacquer them and stuff like that. So I want them to be a really nice leg. And I just, right here anyway, where I am in Canada, I can't find anything in I'm going to switch directions here. I got a light glaring in the background. I can't find anything in a good 4x4. So I find these 2x4s, once you mill them up, they work absolutely perfect. As a matter of fact, when I go in tonight, I'll just give you a quick shot of my dining room table I made and the legs that are on those, and they look fantastic. I mean, it's a farm work, it's farm tables, so it's going to look just fine. Now, the next question might become, my friends, what in pray tell are you going to do for an apron to attach those legs? And that in itself is a very good question. So what I've done here is, of course, I've taken the table and I flipped it over to the underside. And what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to take just a simple 2x4, just a spruce 2x4, and I'm going to trim this down about 1/4 inch off each side so I get a good flat edge, the same on this edge. And then I'm going to measure it out, maybe get an inset of, let's see, about 2 inches here. I'll measure it exactly around, take a speed square and measure it exactly around the perimeter here. Take up my mock-up practice leg, which I've already done. This is just in the rough, and it's, like I say, it's just a rough cut leg that I've done for practice. But I am going to inset this maybe about halfway down the 2x4, which I'm going to mill down. And I think that's going to be a pretty darn good apron that's going to go around here. Excuse me. And then it'll just attach from this end, attach from the other end halfway down. I'll come across here and make it really reinforced. I might even make the leg detachable. I don't know, if I go ahead and get a set of brackets, it's going to cost the client a little bit more money. But I think if I take and route this down, get a nice routing pattern on here, the same on the legs, I think that will look pretty good. That'll be a pretty good apron to go around there. So I'm just going to go ahead and make these up and cut them down, and I'll come back and give you a look-see. So anyway, guys, I've gone ahead and milled up these twice befores into my my ends and edges for the apron, and they came out pretty good. So I just think I'm going to wait for those table legs to dry up, and then we'll come out tomorrow. We'll get everything placed on, cut in, or set in, cut down, and do some routing, and I think it should be looking pretty good. The final sand, get a coat of stuff on there, coat of stain on, and then a coat of lacquer, and it'll look pretty good. Incidentally, I wanted to mention those edges that you trim off the 2x4s, they make awesome paint sticks. So I just keep them, I cut them down, you know, to the size of a paint stick, and then I just use them to stir my lacquer up or stir the stain up with. It seems to work quite well. Anyway, like I say, it's going on 8 o'clock here, getting late, so I think I'm going to call her a night, and we'll come out tomorrow and see how much of this puppy we can get finished off, and get a shelf on the bottom, get it all put together, stained and lacquered, and the client should be happy. And anyway, more to come tomorrow, so have a good night, and we'll see you in the morning. Okay, my friends, we're back here, and notice it's daylight, and I've turned that obnoxious heater off. That was so noisy on the audio last time. I apologize, I won't do that again, but it's freezing out here right now. It's, oh my goodness. It's 6 today, it's not too bad. It's, you know, some days it gets down to -3 and you pretty well have to put that thing on. So it's really hard to film and have that on. But anyway, I'll stop yapping here. We've made some progress on the build. I built the apron, and I'll pull this apart in a few minutes so you can have a good look. And I've done the legs. Remember the legs that we glued up? Well, these are them. And they turned out fairly good, and I'll pull one off. I haven't screwed them down yet, and just show you what I've done here. I've just got a sand on here. It was 60 and 80, so we took the 2x4s and we glued them together. You can see a little bit of a seam, a tiny, if you look really hard. I'm tempted to fill these with a bit of wood filler, but I just hate using wood filler because it always, you know, shows through on the stain a little bit. This is probably the worst one right here, so I might go ahead and dab a bit of filler on there. But other than that, I routed a pattern into the side here. And now I've gone ahead and done a sand with 60, and I'm going to go ahead and do another one with an 80 and 100. Just to get her down so she looks really, really nice. But this is the other one with a seam, and it's barely visible. I don't know what happened here. So I'm going to have to go ahead and do that with some filler or something like that. But other than that, I mean, it looks pretty good. Numbered all the ends, so I know that one goes on one here, and I went and marked these, the pattern. Went about 1.5 inches in on the legs themselves, and then inset the aprons, you know, about halfway down the leg. I'll just pull one off here. And these I've done a quick sand on. They're not looking too bad, and went ahead and routed a pattern into these. So these guys are going to inset in here with the legs attached. I was going to go with some L brackets and make these legs detachable, but it would be stupid to do that because I'm going to go with the bottom shelf here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in with a piece of wood cut on a 45. I'm going to chamfer out these guys in here, put the wood on, and either glue them and lag them. I was going to go with different kind of bolts, but I think maybe just screws or legs and some glue. They're going to hold fairly well. I don't think we need hanger bolts in here because they won't be detachable. But other than that, I'll go ahead and give these legs and this apron a final sand. And I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put some L brackets on the inside of the legs, you know, just type of thing. Maybe a couple on each, maybe 3 here and a couple here. I don't want to overkill it. Glue these down, and I think they'll stay fairly well. Inset the legs, and then I get the shelf on here. I already got the lumber to do the bottom shelf. So we'll do the same as the top. On the bottom shelf, I'll just go ahead and pocket hole these and glue them together and then sand them on the outside. It should look pretty good. Come to about, I suppose, you know, here on the legs. Somewhere in here where it looks good. So we'll go ahead and do that, and once I start putting these down and I get the final sand on, I'll come back and give you a little demo of what she looks like. What I did here, guys, is I went ahead and I L-bracketed these down, put some screws in, and I was going to go ahead and order some of the table brackets from Amazon. I decided, you know, by the time they get here, it's going to be 2 days, so I might as well. I couldn't find any at Home Depot or anything like that, so I might as well go ahead and cut up some brackets from 1x3, angle them off, screw them. I got a couple more screws I have to put in here yet, and then go ahead and get some hanger bolts and drill in. I chamfered these out and drill in there and put the anchor bolts in, and it did work out fairly well. These are good and solid. So I'm going to tighten these down a little bit more, but these are all wood glued down. And this table is sturdy as anything the way it sits right now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead, and she wants, like I'm going to discuss here in a few minutes, put the second shelf in, and she wants it close to the bottom because it is for her tortoise. So I'm going to go right across here with the shelf, face it off, so it looks pretty good. But we're shooting right along here, working out fairly well. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. And if you have any questions, just drop me a line in the comments section there below. I do have to add, it is getting tootin' fruitin' cold out here. It's about -3, so I'm not going to shoot any more videos until I get the, well actually I might just do one to show you the bottom shelf and how I put that together. What I did for the bottom shelf is I just took 3 pieces of 1x6, and then of course I trimmed them down on the table saw, about 1/4 of an inch off each side so they sit nice and flush, and of course trimmed the factory edges off and stuff, made them specifically to the size that I want them, and then I drilled my pocket holes out. And so I'm just going to go ahead and put pocket hole screws in there, some wood glue down here and some pocket screws in, and just basically the same thing as I did for the top and the table itself. So this should work out fairly well. I didn't mention, I think what I'm going to do here is go across here with 2x2s, then mount that and then face it off, probably something like that. At any rate, I got the bottom shelf in the right place where I want it. Got the 2x2s in. They're in there secured with brad nails and wood glue. So this thing is built like a tank now. I mean, it is rock solid. So I got the facings all cut for each side, and plus I've got the shelf all cut up and trimmed out with the jigsaw. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it a quick sand underneath, and then put my shelf on, secure it down, give it a final sand, and wood fill in any rough places, give it the final sand tomorrow, and I think we are ready to stain. But it is looking pretty darn good, guys. So yeah, let's go ahead and get that shelf on, get a few shots with the shelf on, wood, just a few wood fillers in some places, or a bit of wood filler in some places, and let it sit for the night. Final sand tomorrow, we're ready to stain. But I'm impressed. It's starting to look pretty darn good. We've got the shelf on. It's secure as a bug in a rug. Absolutely solid. Got it capped off. It looks pretty darn good as far as I'm concerned. Like I say, it's as solid as anything. So I'm just going to go through and just hit a few cracks, as you can see here, with some wood filler. Let that dry overnight, give it a final sand in the morning, and then we can go ahead and stain and lacquer it. But to me, I don't know, I think the old tortoise is going to be pretty happy on here. So other than that final bit of wood filler, guys, we are pretty much done here for the night. And like I say, I'll just let this dry and then go ahead and give it a good final sand in the morning, make everything look all, I don't know, as perfect as we can get, beautiful. And then we'll go ahead and stain and lacquer it. Okay guys, I've taken the table down to about 120, done the final sanding. I got all the wood filler in, stuff like that, sanded that down. Looking pretty good here. And I don't know, I don't think I'm going to take it down to much more than 120. I mean, if it were You know, if it were hardwood or something, I'd be taking it down a lot more, but it is a farm table, as I call it, farm style or farm work. But I think it's looking pretty good. I'm going to haul it down off the bench there in a second and let you have a look at the top. But it's looking pretty good, and it is going to hold that big old tortoise up there in the reptile tank pretty good, I think. Just kind of come in a bit on the bottom shelf there and the facings inside and stuff, but you know, good enough for me and the tortoises I go out with. And the top here is pretty darn decent, you know, as far as I'm concerned, for just using 1x6 spruce. I mean, it's just basically a strapping, right? So like I said, I took it down to 120, and that's pretty good. There's the odd blemish in there. I mean, the odd little knot hole and stuff like that, but in my humble opinion, it's looking pretty good. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and get a coat of stain on here. I'll show you the color here in a second. And we'll get a good coat of stain on here, and I take it inside, I think, because it is still pretty darn cold, and let it dry inside. And then tomorrow I'll come back out and I'll get about 4 or 5 coats of lacquer on there, and it should be just lickety-boo, just good and shiny as anything. So I'll show you the color in a few minutes here. So guys, we did get the final coat of lacquer on here, and it looks pretty good. The color the customer chose, or the tortoise chose, whoever was choosing the color, is a golden pecan, or golden pecan, whatever you want to call it. And it does look pretty good. I have no complaints anyway. I mean, I personally might have gone a little bit darker, but I think it might look good, pretty good with the old tortoise tank on there. I don't know. Let me know in the comments section below what you think, but I think it's going to be pretty good. Tomorrow we'll let this dry, and tomorrow I will get 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7 coats of lacquer on there, just enough so it's a nice protective cover and it's nice and shiny, and it'll be good to go. We'll start at the next project. At any rate, going to call it a night, let this stain dry, and we'll be back tomorrow to get some lacquer on the old tortoise stand. Okay guys, we are pretty much done here. Got about 4 or 5 coats of lacquer on today. Might get another one on. I just put one on now, but I might get another one on before I go to bed. But we are pretty much finished, and it is looking good. I think the old tortoise should be pretty happy sitting on there. Like I say, it's about 5 coats of lacquer on there now. I might do one more before I go to bed. And contacted the client, and she's quite happy. Thrilled with it. I'm going to give her a bit of extra stain and stuff in case she gets some scratches, and give her some instructions. But I think the old tortoise table turned out good. So I want to thank you for watching, and this is our first project of many here coming up on Dave's Network. Next one is going to be, and I'm going to show you, give you a sneak preview. This is a tabletop. It's actually a pine tabletop I built not so long ago, and I'll go over some of the details in the next video. So I actually built it for another table, sold the table with a glass top, and I'm going to build a base for this. So this is going to be the next project, just this small 2-seater base building for this top. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and a lot more woodworking stuff coming up, so make sure you stay tuned out there. Again, thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.